here with Rebh, the lead designer of Supreme Commander Forged Alliance. Hi, Brad. How you doing?
Hi, good to be back with you.
But how about we send you a link to the Steam page now, and you can watch. There's two videos in there, so you can just like watch them back to back. There you go. First result.
Shattered
Yes.
Sun. That is
Nice.
awesome.
All right.
Turned audio.
No, no, turn it on, man. You need to like hear that. Hear that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
Do you wanna maximize?
Yeah, where you do that here. Got some air units. Oh wow, gorgeous. The shield bubbles. I love how they come together. Nice wreckage. Beautiful. Loving it. Oh man, that alien walker looks gorgeous. I love the waterfalls. Yeah, you got the icons. Definitely captured the feel. That's awesome. All right, where does the Kickstarter go live? I wanna join right now.
All right. Well, actually,
we have a
there
whole
is a
second
button.
video for you to.
No, let him join for Kickstarter. We need the numbers. There's a. If you scroll down just a little bit, there is a. There you
Add
go.
to your
No.
wish list.
No,
Oh, yeah,
doing
you should do that
Yeah.
too.
Support us on Kickstarter, and you just type in your email address. Actually, well, we'll cut your email address from the video, so, but you can
Notify
go
me
in
on
there.
launch.
And,
That's how we get them, boys. Show them a video, and they're ready to go for the Kickstarter.
if everyone
is.
else watching this can do that as well, that would be awesome.
There's another video here.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
is.
So what you just watched was a cinematic trailer. That's not exactly like what things are going to look like in game.
That wasn't an engine.
No.
No.
I'm
was
just kidding.
Yeah.
But this one is.
The next one
So
is
the-
in the engine. So we
Yeah.
have a cinematic trailer, and this is going to be the gameplay trailer.
Okay, awesome. All right, ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, and full screen, please.
Yeah. Beautiful. Oh, you got the chunkiness of the explosion. So perfect. Love it. Strategic zoom. The scale. Oh, you got the smoke clouds. Gorgeous. Oh, those nukes.
Alright, so just the main thing I wanted to explain is that Sanctuary is actually an artificial planet. It's a Dyson sphere built around the sun. So, they built that, and it's sort of like, the sun's on the inside radiating all the energy, and the whole inside is solar panels. So that's capturing the energy. It's meant to be this like scientific utopia. This is like, in the future, but things go bad and all the people start to fight and blow it up. So crust of this thing isn't that thick. So when the super weapons come in, like those nukes, it actually shatters the crust, and you can see underneath all the units collapse in, they fall forward, there's dust. If there's an ocean, those waterfalls that you're looking at, that's the ocean pouring down into the sun.
Oh.
And it's hot down there, so as the water falls down, it evaporates into steam, and then it goes back up again. So
Wow.
So yeah,
I can imagine as you're like zooming in and out, having it going in and out of these like steam columns will be really, really a nice effect.
But that's kind of one of our stretch goals, is to make like super, super, super weapons that are incredibly expensive, but when you use them, they actually punch a hole in the map itself.
And like you could create like massive choke points and
exactly, right? So
wall
it's like,
off.
It's like you're actually changing the map that you're playing on. You have this massive army on your doorstep, and now it doesn't matter anymore because they have to go around or something.
That's pretty awesome. Or you gotta ferry them across the big hole, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? But like one thing is like the sunlight can be so harsh it actually damages the aircraft that fly over it. It melts them out of the sky. Yeah.
No, that's really cool. I there's a lot you can play with there from terrain deformation. I think we talked about it, has a lot of potential for really, changing the battlefield in interesting ways. That makes you have to react, and my head's going about like like you said, the different shapes you could make, and the way it could heal, and as you build, maybe even being able to like build terrain on top of that so that you can like make it more difficult to puncture the holes back in. They take like repeated hits if there's like a really important strategic point, then you could build up the terrain so that it's
the other guy can't blow it up as easily.
So like building tarmac down is like an important part of your strategy, because if like your commander's sitting there, maybe it can survive a hit from one of these weapons, but if the terrain under it goes out, it just falls into the sun and game over.
I just love that idea where like someone scouts that you're building this massive weapon and everyone just starts building ground.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, put on the ground, quick!
And I think like when we were working on Supreme Commander, that was very much like every new way of attacking, we were trying to think of, all right, well, what's the counter?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and so like I think building that into your methodology here around this terrain deformation is a good way of thinking about the strategy.
Yeah, definitely, because we actually had the very similar thoughts. Like every mechanic we put in, we're actually thinking, well, if you're playing against that, what's it like? What is the experience? Because you don't want to be like, the ultimate experience is, when you're playing your game, you're winning, and then somebody just rolls in and like snipes your commander. And that experience is like somebody just goes up and turns off your screen, and you're like, man, I was having fun here. What are you doing that for, right?
But that's intel, right? You got to have intel on what the other person is doing, and if you don't, then you're going to be caught off guard like that. That was also a very important part of Supreme Commander's development.
Right. There's all sorts of like tricks that we're thinking about to sort of make you want to like
use the deformation in a way that actually alters the map rather than just blowing up the enemy base, because that's kind of the least ambitious thing you could do, right?
Yeah, now all the ships are stuck.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like if all the water drains out now.
Glad you mentioned that, because we're thinking about that too.
And like this is actually my favorite thing that we've added to this game, because I just think it really changes everything. So that would freeze the whole map. It's not going to freeze like an area, because that's too difficult to think about, as a player, localized freezing and stuff. It's just the whole map is frozen or it's not.
So
Fantastic. And then having units that like ski units and stuff that do really well in the snow that now like are really slow because there's they can't glide over the snow anymore. Yeah.
I mean, there's all sorts of ideas and considerations that the potential here is like that much, right? And we've seen like that much of it, so we just know that we just focused on kind of adding a layer of strategic level changes, so that rather than like a local tactical kind of deformation or a thing, we want to look at things that kind of affect the entire map, which changes like you blow up the thing in the north, but the guys on the south, they're having this naval fight.
My mind's going. So as you're talking about like the world having like the world being alive and control of the environment and the weather, like one idea is, so there was the geothermal power plants in the past, right? Like you were talking about water coming up and down. Like if I could build like dams that generate power, and maybe like even like wind farms and stuff, and then I could build weather machines, and if I crank like the
it changes
wind
the
up
amount
high
of resources
enough, but also like if I crank the wind up, now air units are like less capable. The player in the lead maybe doesn't want the map to get hotter and hotter because their base is sprawling and that's more to protect, but the player who's behind then like actually wants the map to get hotter and hotter because they have less to protect, because they're getting their butts kicked, and if they can get the volcano to erupt, then that could like even the playing field.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right? And like there could be like a ginormous kind of structure, because like these things can go for kilometers, and then you like blow up a piece of it, and it doesn't like collapse onto the map, but like bits of it fly down, and they just damage bits. And like if the other guy's base is bigger because he's ahead, he's gonna take more damage, right? Or something like that. So.
That's an interesting thing that we're doing. So by putting it on a Dyson sphere, we get like a few unique things that we get to do, because we can control the weather and we can smash the sphere, right? And both of those things let you do things that haven't really been done before in RTS. Like I know they've had weather in RTS, and there were ion storms and all sorts of different things. But what we do is we let the players fight over the map. So there might be that strategic, weather control building somewhere, and you really don't want me to destroy it.
So how moddable will this be?
Glad you asked. We have we thought about this for a bit, and we thought, well, if we actually have a Lua as a scripting language, then actually you can mod this thing quite a lot. And so right now, today, the game content runs as a mod for our engine. In Lua.
Beautiful.
Like, we have a game build, and it's all, like, cranky and broken and stuff, but the code in that game build, you can open it. Like, the game build, like, you get the exe, and then there's a folder with Lua files in there, and if you change them, it changes what's in the game.
That's awesome.
Yeah, was a really important thing, and that, we've had that since day one. I should also point out that all the things that we've talked about so far are Kickstarter stretch goals, so the freezing of the ice and the shattering of the sphere at runtime, those are both stretch goals. We don't have budget to deliver those right now, so we need support. We need people to go click on that Kickstarter, be like Brad guys, go on to Steam, find that button, just put your name there. So when we do launch the Kickstarter, you get an email, and then we can build the really juicy features that we want to build, but right now we just simply cannot afford to. So we'd just be building like a base game.
That's awesome. And subs can keep the
because the ice is on the surface, so the submarines could like sneak around, right? But we were also thinking
there could be this full war going underneath the surface.
And then they could
ice.
break. It would be really interesting to get the VFX guy to make the animation for like them breaking through the ice, then launching the missiles. That's
for sure. Yeah.
So we're just doing lots of the same things that or in other RTSs, we got the strategic zoom, queuing orders, that's really important.
Definitely. Yeah, the command and control, queuing up orders, that is a key part of, the overall strategy, because you don't want to, with the number of units that you're going to have, you don't want to force people to micro everything as much as possible.
Yeah.
So you're going to need the formations. And
Especially
maybe
if
that's
an
too
astute player starts drawing lines with his icebreakers, he's like, oh, the army's coming, let's draw walls, but in the water, right?
I love the idea of these tanks coming over this lake and these icebreaker ships like coming at the tanks with like, you know, like ships behind them shooting, and there's this like volley of fire at each other, and the icebreaker ships like break into the lines of the tanks, and the tanks start falling into the water.
Falling in between the ships, exactly.
That sounds so incredible.
This is our Dyson sphere. You can see that's the sun. That's like Earth sun right there inside.
Artistic license takes the cake here because we gotta make it look appealing as well. And then with these mirrors, you know, like we were thinking, you know, because actually like mirrors, they don't have to be just a single mirror. You could have like ginormous like 3-dimensional arrays of programmable mirrors.
Anytime there's an explosion anywhere, it's just shattering random background stuff like trees, and they just splinter. That's perfect. Yeah, the weapons would smash a hole. Some epic super weapon that takes forever to build and is scouted, so you have time to figure it out. Yeah, so inside the hole, you can sort of see deep down into it. You can see the inner surface, kind of, a little bit. So there's all these little plates, and that's what, you know, the solar collectors gathering the energy from the sun, and there's, you know, a bunch of beams and structural stuff inside it. These are our factions. So according to the law, you have the humans, so they're the EDA green people, but the and then the guard, they're the former builders of Sanctuary. So the robots, they're self-replicating robots, and they built the whole of Sanctuary. They built each other, and they're under control of an AI. I think it just opens it up to like storytelling that we haven't seen before and gives it a little bit of flavor. So that's why for me, I'm like God all the way. And if you go in our Discord, you can pick which faction you are. It's very exciting. There's a button, you click it, and it says you're in that faction, and that's it.
You can't change it. You're locked in.
Yeah.
And then you get a special faction channel that only your faction can see, and you can see all the great faction memes, and everyone makes fun of all the robots and the chosen guys, because obviously I'm in the EDA, so best faction.
I mean, this is great. You've got 3 factions that you can sympathize with, that you can also see how they could be taking it too far. And
So what like we were thinking about this is like each faction is actually kind of an exploration of a different nature of consciousness.
You could do some really cool thing, and all of it's like the people under it are just like, what are we doing? What is this mission about? This is absolutely crazy, but it's actually a really good idea, but no one gets it, you know?
Seeing, you need to see the big picture, right?
Yeah, and then there's other stuff like, you know, like low temperature supercomputing, right? It's super efficient. So the chosen are like, well, hang on, like the virtual trees are as good as the real ones. So what we do is get this, guys. We freeze the whole sphere, and then we tile that in computers, right? And then everybody gets infinite paradise, right? And then the EDA is like, hang on, guys. We live on that. I don't want to live in a frozen hellscape, right? So that's like kind of a cool
robots work quicker, right? Yeah. Robots work quicker. You don't have to cool them. You know, Sanctuary gets built faster. The chosen think faster because it's cooler. Like everything, like actually indicates that the whole planet should be deep frozen, except for those pesky like human bodies, you know.
The frailty of the organic flesh, right?
Yeah, well,
I know, right?
Yeah.
And that's what kind of like, that's one of the things that contributed to the big fight, you know, in the first place, and this moon crash and all that sort of stuff, is that the Chosen were about to do that or doing that. And I could be a bit out of date with the lore because I haven't had a chat with those guys for a while, but like these are kind of all the elements in play, and when we actually ship the game, it'll be a bit different.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very excited about all this stuff because, you know, lots of once again campaigns, the storytelling doesn't really do it for me because I've just done it so many times. It's like, yeah, they got some tanks and you got to get some tanks and go blow them up, and I'm like, well, that's cool, and I'll do it, like it's fun. But I would much rather the person I'm fighting be a deranged genius and like, Yeah, like I mean, it just I want to play that.
And
All
then
right,
like,
let's keep going.
yeah.
This is the chosen
Yeah.
faction. So these are your cyborgy, post-human people, but very curvaceous.
Visually, they're no right angles. It's curves and smooth contours.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It wasn't
Aesthetics.
hard for us to come with three distinct faction styles because we just got three different artists and they
Oh,
just
that's awesome.
do
Yeah.
things differently. So yeah, and yeah, that's the king piece unit. In Sanctuary you had the commander. This is God. So these are the builders of Sanctuary. Um, Lots of circles going on. Third tech level.
Yeah. And the idea is that these robots were like worker robots. So this guy has a giant like arc welding laser on the front, which is, for welding beams. But it turns out if you you can unweld enemy tanks as well. It's that great. Yeah.
That's some of our
Gorgeous.
promo art that we had made. This is EDA, so the humans now, a bit more utilitarian in art style. These guys, But what this faction has that the other doesn't is it's got plans for lots and lots of moving parts and stuff. So on all of these, aircraft, there's things flaps going up and down and things turning and stuff, and a lot more than the other faction. So although it's a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, that's a
So
gunship.
that's a
and it's got
rail gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rail gun on
Yeah.
the bottom, the idea behind that weapon is the bullet moves so fast, we render it as a beam in the game. So it's like you can only see the shockwave and the after image from it. It's just like
And
there's so
shooting through multiple targets,
Yeah.
which probably isn't that relevant to the gunship, but the ground-based ones can just shoot through 3 units. Or
Yeah, if
whatever.
it kills a unit, the bullet still has enough energy to hit another unit, so it just keeps going until it runs out of damage, right? Or it hits the ground.
That's awesome. Love it.
Wanting to do some work with bridges, building collapsing, all that sort of stuff. So that could also affect the map in terms of dynamic maps because, well, one, just having bridges is cool because you can go over and under. But what if you blow up the bridge? What if the bridge crashes down on some units? So you'd kill the units on top and on bottom.
What's the plan for pathfinding?
Well, so that's in our dots engine. So what we have is we have Lua and we have dots. Do you know what dots is?
Mm-mm.
I'll just explain it for the audience anyway. But it's in Unity, which we're building this. They have this thing coming out called dots. It's not really released properly yet. They're kind of building it, but it's super high performance, super multi-threaded
Nice.
jobs where you write your code in a really weird, very particular way that is very odd, but you do it and it just spreads it across all your CPUs. So if you cores, so if you have 64 cores, it'll use them. If you have 4 cores, it'll use them. And that's not the only thing it does. It does a whole bunch of other stuff that also makes it super fast execution times. So for example, in some of our early coding, we had 50,000 units all driving around shooting each other with no sweat, 60 frames per second. That's changed now. We're not doing that. We're aiming for 10,000 real time. That was before we added some things like the whole network layer because we have trouble sending that amount of data across the network. But in terms of CPU, we can do it. It's just in terms of network we can't. So then the network upload speed is actually our bottleneck now. Yeah. So we're designing everything around that, and it's it makes some things kind of odd, and it's constantly frustrating. But that's the reality. That's our constraint. Everyone walked into it thinking that CPU was going to be the hard bit, but you have to spend time on it. But it's very much a conquerable problem. And so you asked what the pathfinding's like. Yeah, we're doing flow field pathfinding through dots so that we can run all these units into each other across the map like that. all the other games that got released, they published all these articles about them, how they are built. Like for example, we have some idea of how pathfinding was done in like say Subcom 2, for example, but also ballistic trajectories and all sorts of different stuff. In Planetary Annihilation, they had that chronocam. They explained how that worked. Like there's we've got a head start on all this stuff. It's not like we're just inventing everything. So that's really useful. And I think all those games were based off what game was it that invented lockstep in the first place? That was I can't even remember the name. It was Age of Empires, wasn't it?
Oh, okay.
And they made a post, I think it was that game, they made a post about that a very, very, very long time ago, explaining how they got that working over the network, and that was using lockstep. They invented that, and since then, just like every game's been doing that. The other thing on this screen is that commander upgrades. So commander upgrades are really important to me personally. I think that's some of the coolest stuff that's in Subcom and other RTSs, is like just being able to upgrade your unit, get a bigger gun, walk in, start shooting stuff, you nearly die, you're retreating, holy crap, you get under a shield, you do another upgrade, you go back out there, or there's this army approaching, you drop your commander in, you're doing the final stand. I've seen people take out experimentals in games with one overcharge from a commander just at the end, and then another experimental came in and they did it again, man. And just because it was like near death, it was near death. Yep. And they had no units left, and man, it makes it edge of the seat stuff. Absolutely genius, having these king piece units and the upgrade system. But there are some alterations, I guess, we'd like to do to the formula. So one is we want to have these different commander chassis. So you start off as the normal light chassis, but you can actually go to like an operating theater, like a surgery building, go inside, get physically dismantled and rebuilt as a slightly different unit. So you might be in the medium chassis now. So now you're like a heavier unit, you got more hit points, but you walk slower. So there's a good and a bad thing. Or there's a super heavy chassis and now you're like a bit of a tank, but you walk really slow. And then maybe some chassis are a bit more interesting. Maybe one chassis makes you a hover unit or submersible or whatever. So they don't have to just be like big and little, they could be more interesting than that. And then the difference is each chassis would have different upgrades. So the epic upgrades would only be available on the epic chassis. And what this does is lets you scout them, because that's another problem with kind of Forged Alliance, in my opinion, is that sometimes they have these upgrades that are really, really super deadly, and it's hard to know if they've got them or not. Mm-hmm. So this would be a way of kind of advertising that. 1, they built the operating theater. 2, you saw them in there. 3, they're in the heavy chassis, and now they can have the super gun.
Yeah, but yeah, that's great. I love that you're thinking about it. It's kind of like what you're talking about is sort of like a skill tree, right? Done. You choose to customize and build up your commander or your king piece in a way that's going to best suit your strategy, which.
All sorts of things.
As you upgrade them, will they get bigger too?
Yes, that's the key with the chassis is that by the time you get the chassis and you upgrade it, like it looks like a T4 unit, and it's the size of a T4 unit. It's got the power of a T4 unit. It's just like this ginormous monster of a thing.
These VFX look great.
Yeah, so you saw all of those in the trailer, but that's an example of the sort of stuff that we're working with at the moment. That'll get better over time.
Yeah, I did some of the VFX on Supreme Commander early when I first joined the team, and then we got a VFX team that took it over, which was fantastic, so I could focus on design. But these look beautiful.
That's our kind of maps and stuff. So you would have seen that in the trailer as well. Oh, there's the trees.
I put in 100,000 trees that we did the other few weeks ago. So this is what 100,000 trees looks like, and we actually have the frame counter in the corner of that window. I think it's like 76 frames per second.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the idea.
Shore effects. Where you got some there on the top left.
Yeah, well, the waves, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have waves and stuff. I think that'll get better over time as well. We definitely need to make
the guy,
beaches deeper.
Our graphics guy did like waves properly, so he used the Fourier transforms to actually do it. Like, it's not just the scrolling texture; it's the real deal. Like that's why they look quite realistic. So
these other ideas that we haven't like fully fleshed out, like like the game designer teams want to design the game so that it's fully playable on a water only map, so you don't need land. That would be cool. So I guess
very cool.
Yeah.
If the strategic zoom could even go cut into the water, that would be amazing.
So that you could go under.
Yeah, and you could see the subs and stuff under the water. Especially, like, I think that would be important on a fully playable water map where you're like building on the seafloor, right?
Yeah.
And the seafloor could be more interesting. Like, I know a lot of we didn't really pay too much attention to what was under the water. Like, we tried to just make it deep and allow the subs to move. But if you had, like, you're basically at that point, your submarines are your air units, right? And
Right.
they could be, swimming around and like blowing up your bases under the water. Which, when you were talking about shield generators, like if you could build on the seafloor, you could build shield bubbles that keep the water out and actually create land
nice.
That I'm
and then when they collapse, all the buildings get washed away.
Yeah.
Oh, when you power store.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When you run out of energy, yeah, that's it. Bye.
I think, the having the bases on the surface totally makes sense too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have any like questions or ideas or anything?
I mean, I asked a lot of them as we went, and I do need to get going.
Cool.
But like what you guys are doing here is really cool and ambitious, and I wish you all the luck and success here. And if there's anything I can do to help, just let me know.
Well, thanks heaps. You've already done heaps to get this whole thing going in the first place. Thank you for the call and for spending the time with us, because this is it's gonna change things for us, and it's really useful.
I hope so. I hope this gets real big and you guys have a lot of success. This looks fantastic.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much.
Good luck.
See you later.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.